They thought they'd be happier without you. But life has a funny way of proving people wrong. This is what happened when an ex realized it was already too late. I broke up with a woman I was head over heels in love with over something that on reflection was fairly minor. Spent half a year progressively dropping into a deeper and deeper funk. Wouldn't admit it to myself at all that I'd made the wrong choice. I was hanging out with a friend when she pointed out to me that she had never seen me as happy as I'd been when I was with my so. Another friend pointed out that same week that the music I'd been DJing had become much more depressing over the past few months, and asked me if something was wrong. That woke me up and made me realize how special she had been. It took another year for me to realize she was the first woman I'd really loved in the way you come to love somebody for who they are, rather than what you imagine them to be. I never saw her again. I wish I'd never left her. We only would have had 6 years together, as she came down with cancer that eventually killed her. It didn't change how I felt. I take those 6 years in exchange for all the years I have left. A few months had gone by, and I was still feeling like shit about it, 'cause I knew she really loved me. However, as much as I cared about her, I couldn't shake the feeling that I couldn't be the man she needed me to be for her, and felt I was leading her on. I had been okay with my decision. Then I went on a trip to NYC with a couple of friends. It was not an enjoyable trip, and top things off, I found out my granddad had died the week prior, so I had to fly back home almost immediately after returning from New York. Suffice it to say, I was ready for it all to be over by day 2 of this essentially 2-week trip. Anyway, about 3 to 4 days and my friends and I were out to dinner, and they started talking about my ex. They had gotten to know her while we were together, and they still hung out. All I remember was wanting nothing more than to be home already and to be with my ex. That's when it dawned on me, and my heart sank. Saw her again when I finally got home again after about 4 months, and spilled my guts. But she had already started seeing someone new in that time. Wound up meeting him at a housewarming party a few months after she and I reconnected, and it turns out she has a type. Her guy and I hit it off immediately XD. Dude and I got super drunk together, and I wound up telling him something along the lines of, I really wanted to hate you, but god damn it, you're fucking awesome. He was a wonderful sport, and got a good laugh out of it. I promptly informed my ex of my plans to steal him from her. Needless to say, this was something like 2 years ago. They got married last month, and I'm happy to report that we are good friends. Do I regret ending things? Sure, but the time and perspective helped tremendously, and frankly, she did a lot better in finding him. I love them both dearly, and get a lot of joy seeing the two of them so happy with one another. Mine is tremendously dumb. We were 18, and I didn't have that same love feeling, and we were headed to colleges an hour apart. So I thought breaking up was the right thing to do. A few weeks later, we're chatting and lightly flirting on AOL Instant Messenger when she misspells touche as tushy. I laughed so hard at this mistake that it made me miss her. She also informed me of a guy she'd had a few dates with, so there was some jealousy. I asked her to a movie to talk, dumb, I know, and I felt a strong attraction again. I kissed her in the parking lot after, and we kind of restarted, but with a better foundation. We've been together ever since, and celebrated 10 years of marriage over the summer. TL, DRX spelled touche, as Tushy, and I fell in love with her again. As an aside, my wife is brilliant and almost done with her master's. She's just not great at spelling. I checked out his new GF social media accounts and saw how they were living exactly the same kind of life we had, and also living out things that my ex and I had planned. The difference is she seems so happy about it. Her captions about him shows how she treasures him and thinks highly of him, like she's so lucky to have him. He is indeed a good man. But during our time together, he hadn't really figured out stuff yet. I felt like I always had to encourage him, to motivate him. I felt that I was always going to be the captain and cheerleader in the relationship. When I read his current GF's captions, it wasn't an oh shit moment exactly, more of a disconcerting feeling of was I wrong? Should I have been happier with that role? With what we had? Should I have not wished for more? Is there even a more? But ultimately, I am happy for him. I don't think I'd ever be loved like that again, though. Edit after reading the comments. I do take social media with a grain of salt. Her captions about him are not exaggerations, though. I know because I would have used the same words to describe him. What was unsettling for me was the thought that I didn't really focus on those positive qualities. I always questioned things. Were we moving in the same pace? Are we doing the right things to reach our goals? Why aren't we progressing as fast as X and Y? New GF is a bit older, more settled in life, and seems a lot more accepting and easygoing. Well, he's also doing so much better now. The weird feeling comes from the fact that I could have just as easily assumed the same point of view she has, and our lives would have been totally different. One of my exes I just never made time for. She was a great girl. We got along well. I just had different priorities at that point in my life. She brought it up to me twice. She put in effort to fix it, tried scheduling dates, sat down and talked to me, and explained why she was feeling hurt. And I changed for a week. But I go back to my old ways. I just wasn't committed. I had other focuses, namely my career. Finally, she just said she still enjoyed my company, but couldn't call seeing me once a week for a 2 to 3 hours of relationship. Even after she tried to stay friends, but time between my responses got longer and longer until eventually I looked at it, and her last text was from over a month ago. I felt too ashamed to respond. I probably should have. But I don't blame her. She had needs I was not paying attention to. So I guess it's more she broke up with me, but she didn't want to. I forced her hand by just not being around. The important thing was I learned from it. I learned I needed to pay more attention to my partners. I learned that just because I am very long-term focused, that I cannot ignore the more immediate concerns and justify it with, it'll pay off in the long run. And that is a lesson that has led to success since then. Sometimes, losing you is the karma they never saw coming. Because by the time they regret it, you've already moved on.